wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast, Bridget said she really wanted to check in with me about how my journey was going with 4. So I said, okay, we'll do that. Before we jump into that, I'd just love to remind you to jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe, where once a week we'll send you an email with all the links and blurbs for everything we've put out in the world so you can connect with what lights you up and inspires you to dive deeper. Occasionally we'll send you another email that we call love letters, which are essentially discussions that we'd have between each other that we think you as a conscious mother would be really interested in hearing. So please connect with us through joining our tribe at nourishingthemother.com.au.
So, we have baby Gwen here.
We do, because I'm sorry I had to feed her in between, recordings. So here we go.
You can feel you can hear a little bit of grunting and guzzling, and that's Gwen. And I just felt like now is the perfect time, really, as you almost get to sort of the 12-week mark with her, to really check in and see how you're feeling as you reflect on the last 12 plus months of knowing now that you're going to be a mother of 4.
Yeah. And
the concept of capacity, because that was something that we've talked about this a lot, and this idea of in mothers of 1 can't imagine possibly being a mother of 2, and then mothers of 2 can't imagine being a mother of 3, and I mean for you really getting your head around being a mother of 4 was massive.
Yep.
And so I really want to know how your ideas going into this, her impending birth, and now as you reflect, how have your ideas and beliefs and challenges around the idea of capacity been tested, and where do you sit now?
Golly gosh, I might need that question broken down.
What does capacity mean to you, and how are you finding yourself really reaching your edges at the moment in terms of how much you give to yourself and how you're able to give to all of your children?
Yeah. Look, when I think about that question, what I think about more is that the harder juggle for me, I think, has been giving to my relationship. So, because of my value system, I suppose the relationship factor did kind of slide down. It's a value shift, right? Yeah. And it slid down. So it was children and it was work still, because that lights me up as a woman. And then relationship kind of sat under that. And I think I'd blogged about it that's been a really hard wrestle for me, where previously I suppose that's been relatively... Well, we'd worked on it hard enough that it was reasonably effortless. And I did the interview with Nick at 3 weeks. And at 3 weeks, I think I was still in this total baby bubble.
Yeah.
And we were still super connected, and I think I was probably still super high on my birth hormones and taking my placenta pills. And then the more we've gotten into the real world, so he's gone back to work, we're still working, I've still got kids that have started back at school rather than being on school holidays, and we're back into the routine of all of their extracurriculars. Now we're into life.
Yeah.
It's definitely way harder. And I'm not being fed meals. That was the other thing, is I never had to cook dinner, because for 6 weeks I had a meal brought to me, which was unfreaking believable, to never have to worry about food.
About where your next meal was coming from,
Yeah. And so I think that's why, my values could shift the way that they did, because my value on food or on nutrition was already being looked after.
Yes.
So I didn't have to worry about it.
So you could still nurture a relationship, because you weren't having to spend that time that you would have spent cooking. You could cook your relationship instead.
It's true, right? This is the value shift that we're always talking about. And then life kicked back in, and all of a sudden I had to do everything I was doing, plus a baby.
Yeah.
And so it was relationship, I think, that really lost out in that, and then brought us full circle into having what is essentially almost a weekly conversation about where we're at and course correcting, which is the whole purpose of it too. I always think whenever we have that value shift and that value becomes painful, that's our call to our next evolution of it, right? It's our call to our next toolkit, to our next expansion. It's the awareness flag, and that was certainly what was happening for me in relationship, and it was painful because that pains me. It hurts my heart, and it hurts my well-being, and it hurts the way my family functions.
And how does it hurt the way your family functions in terms of how you relate to your children, therefore? I mean, is there building resentment? Is there frustration? And how does that manifest?
I just get super narky at my husband. I think that hurt turns into anger. And the more it turns into anger, the more we're not talking. Yeah. And the more we're not talking, the more I'm angry. You know, and it's like this vicious cycle because it's easier to be angry than it is to be hurt and vulnerable. And it's easier to make you wrong and, you know, essentially, you know, bitch to all my girlfriends about all the ways you're not measuring up than it is to have an honest conversation about what my needs are. Yeah. And how I would really like you to fulfill those. And what I'm not doing for myself. Like, that is more painful than being able to shrug it off and laugh it off and sit in anger.
Totally, yeah, because it's vulnerable.
Yeah. So I think for me, the capacity stretch for me has been more in my relationship than it has been in my mothering.
Yeah.
I found it more difficult to be deeply present with my 4-year-old. So she, as you know, her whole journey was like ridiculous amounts of consciousness. And she was the baby of the family. Like, the whole family revolved around her because she was so consciously conceived, right? Yeah. I mean, her whole, not even just conception in terms of, you know, the physical act, but just her whole evolution and being was conscious. And so she became the center of the family and everybody functioned around her. And all of a sudden, she's not. And that's been really hard for her. I think it's hard for all siblings because they always, no matter where they are, get out of shift. But so she's turned that into not anger, but emotion. So way more meltdowns. Yeah, right. Way less capacity, which is funny because she can put up with way less now before she's at her limit.
Okay.
And definitely all over me physically. So we've moved, it's almost like a revert, which is funny right now I think about it, because you remember how she was super, super attached, and that was like the thing I was most fearful about with my 4? Yeah. We've come back there.
Oh, wow. But in the form of Lola, not Gwen.
Yeah. So my probably retreating from her has caused her to cling tighter. So, you know, that I think I've found difficult as well, because it's meant I've then had to be conscious about creating pockets of connection with her and pockets of listening, because there's lots of times I now can't listen. Yeah. Whereas there used to be lots of times that I could. So, you know, babyhood is way more taxing in that physical way. They're way more needy on you, settling, you know, all of that stuff that used to be just, in inverted commas, free time, now isn't. And it's not focused on her. So, yeah.
And how does that feel for you within you? Do you have an internal conflict around her?
Yeah, I still wrestle with it.
Yeah. What does that look like for you? How do you sit with those feelings? How do you move through those? How do you rationalise those?
I guess it comes, my first reaction would be guilt. So that classic of mother guilt. Yeah. But I know enough with the work that you and I do to know that mother guilt is just feedback of being out of alignment. And I don't hate on my mother guilt. I don't wish it wasn't there. I kind of love it as feedback. And so it brings enough, if I start feeling that, I can bring awareness to that and go, hang on a second, what's the belief I'm running? Because we're always running an internal thought or belief that leads to the guilt. Yes. And so I question, what is the belief behind the feeling? So I guess once I've brought awareness to it and the beliefs and the patterns underneath it, then I'm consciously questioning myself. I'm asking the questions that we would ask anyone in our group or in our Loathing to Loving program. I'm going through that list. And so that kind of short circuits my guilt, because it brings me back into a moment of, okay, what's my values clash here? What's the belief? Is it mine to carry? Which way am I actually feeling most aligned and congruent to? And therefore that changes what my next reaction is. So it really means instead of running on autopilot and doing automatically the thing that I would do next, it's this questioning moment of what is more important to me here? Do I need to be present to her, or have I got more, you know, impending things and I'm okay with leaving her right now, knowing that I'm coming back to her later? Like, it's a real alignment check-in. So that's kind of how I treat my mother guilt now, is more just an alignment check-in. And it does mean that, you know, there are longer periods where I'm not present to how she's feeling. She definitely has to go longer, but so does everyone. Yeah. And that's kind of the stretch with family. And I really notice that when I step away, someone else steps up as well. So sibling dynamics definitely play into it. And because my kids are really, you know, we're sporty and we're out in the community a lot, other siblings come into it. So it almost becomes this large extended family. And I really see how the role that I'm not filling, she gets filled by 10 other people. And so I balance that out too, because it doesn't always have to be me.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be me.
Has that required, because I mean, obviously you and I both have quite strong sort of values around the way that we parent, or, you know, what our values are in terms of what our children are, you know, not so much exposed to in the world, but rather like what they internalise. And so has that been challenging for you to know that simply by nature of having more children and having more demands put on yourself that you are having less perhaps influence potentially? Has that been something you've had to sit with?
Yeah, look, I mean, I do think when I think to my first, as you and I talk about to my fourth, it's really different. And now I also have a community of women that don't feel judged by me and therefore feel comfortable to step in and help. You know, and that's huge. You know, I can be in any community that I'm in, and there's always going to be 4 or 5 women there who will either take the baby or will take Lola, depending on whose needs I need to meet. And either way, I'm okay with them handling the tears or the emotion that they're handling with that child of mine while I handle the other one.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's this fluidity, because in that moment they're learning, in that moment they're connecting, in that moment this mum's having an opportunity to step up, to, you know, offer her service and love, to, you know, like so many dynamics that fit there. And I feel so totally supported now with that, rather than judged.
And also, I guess, rather than there being a right or a wrong way anymore.
Yeah, I really don't see it as black and white anymore. I know I certainly did, and that definitely kept people at bay. Yeah. Whereas now I think they feel really invited in. And, you know, that doesn't mean I have to change the way that I parent per se. Like, I'm still the mum at, you know, the basketball stadium, like yesterday and today, that rocked around with the baby in the sling while I'm coaching and moving people places and having meetings and discussions and kids running around. I'm still there, attachment parenting in essence. Yeah. I'm still breastfeeding. But in between all of that, there's siblings that are looking after kids, and there's play and movement and interaction and other people holding baby. Like there becomes a very communal space when I can really see that everyone brings a genius. It doesn't have to be my version of genius. Yeah. And nor should it be, because if they're only exposed to mine, I kind of think I'd fuck them up.
Yeah, and that's actually, on that point, that's one reason why I think I don't know that I'd ever homeschool, because I don't know that I want my child to bathe in my, like, space all the time.
Yeah,
like, there's enormous wisdom to be added by community, right? Like, you know, by different genius and by different perspective and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah, it really is.
But I also really recognise that that's a journey that you have to travel if you're really intentional around your parenting. You know, accepting those different inputs, you know, and accepting that sometimes other people might not meet your child's needs in the way that you would choose to meet them, but that they might meet them in a different way.
That it's not wounding.
Yeah, and then it's not wounding,
Which is the way that I definitely would have seen it.
I also wonder if, because of this perspective that you've got now, how much that actually gives you energy in your motherhood.
Yeah, I don't feel tired, honestly. I don't. And I kind of think that I keep hearing you in my head, Bridget, going, you know, energy is infinite when you know its source. And
so what is the source then?
What's the source right now? You on fire. I have to say it's nourishing the mother. Like, I just, like, it seriously just lights my heart and my soul. And I keep meeting these incredible women and these incredible mums, and, you know, they keep coming to me from everywhere. And I'm meeting so many that are from families of 4 or have families of 4. Like, talk about awareness, right? Like, it's always in the world. It's how we filter our reality, right? Yeah. Depending on what's most important to us. Well, here we are. All I can see is families of 4 everywhere, which is ridiculous. Yeah. And, you know, just incredible, incredible women, and, you know, the tools, the way that we view the world consciously through nourishing the mother, I can apply that to my whole world, and it literally lights me up. Like, I just think it's so inspiring to me, and to see the ripples of women shifting and changing in their own unique, incredible way. Like, it just, witnessing other women just light themselves on fire, I just feel that. Yeah. And so when I'm showing up my motherhood, I also like freaking love motherhood. Like I really do. Like part of me wants to be like the day person that goes, oh, I love being a mum. No, but I like really dig motherhood. Even when it's fucking hard, I love to be able to go, fuck, that was shit. And have a laugh about it.
Yeah.
And be like, whoa, but here I am, you know.
I'm still here. I'm still showing up.
I'm still here. And maybe I'll have a drink and that shit moment will create huge connection with my husband or with my friends or, you know, and I'd still see how much that serves. And because I love community and I love family, I'm kind of doing that everywhere in my world. So it's kind of, I don't know, when you know its source, it's there, right? And I see that in my husband and in my friend who both just have taken up, you know, really intense coaching deals with basketball. And yes, it's more time away from their family. And yes, it's more taxing on them. And yes, they're homeless. But when they're home, they're freaking like lit, like inspired.
That's so cool.
And full of energy. And that overflows into all areas of their life. Yeah. So are they taking away or are they giving more? Yeah. And I kind of go, that's it, right? Like, especially my friend who I had all these conversations with last year about doing it has taken the leap this year. And she said to me the other day, I'm just so grateful. Like it's just, and she's glowing. And I just think that's the difference, right? Is seeing how it serves rather than takes away. So that's what lights me on fire. And even when, you know, maybe I've had a really rough night with my baby or I'm feeling shit, I just go to my community and I'm feeling great again. So, or I get to have a great conversation with my kids because I'm tired and I just want to be home. Yeah. Well, then I'm just home. Yeah. And I get to bathe in whatever's happening at home. And that lights me on fire. Yeah. So I kind of go, like, how freaking lucky is this to, like, you and I were having this conversation about what is success, right? Yeah. We only see these documentaries around success being the pinnacle of the multi-billion-dollar empire. Well, is that success, or is success really feeling lit up and having, and Esther Perel talks about it doesn't matter how successful you are in your world on business, on finances, on whatever, we will determine the quality of our life by the relationships that we have. When we look back and we see how connected we were, how lit up we were, how intertwined and, you know, ecstatic in our relationships we were. Like that is the stuff that holds your memory, that creates the soulful nourishment. And that's success, right? Like when you know what your values are and you can really, I mean, her value is obviously on relationship too. Yeah. But when you can know really wholeheartedly what your values are, and even in the shit times, realize that there's still absolute
gold.
Yeah. Like just, I'm not saying it's easy. Like I'm not sitting here going, you know, it's easy. It's not. But I freaking love the chaos.
Yeah, but too. Also we embrace the challenge far more readily when we're, you know, in our highest values, and that's what you are. So even adding another child, because family is so central to you, you are more readily able to, you know, integrate the challenge that comes with, you know, feeding a baby, changing a baby, you know, bathing, you know, all that stuff.
And I do think our toolkit makes a big difference to that. Like I do think knowing how to balance my polarizations, knowing how to bring awareness to my beliefs that are underpinning my emotions, being able to actually bring awareness to that completely transforms the way that I show up as well. Yeah. Because I'm not funneling into spirals of guilt or isolation or depression, because I have a toolkit that I can constantly apply day to day.
Yeah, you're equilibrating yourself kind of on the hop, because you know that if you get down, if you're going to get to those places, you know you're not seeing the whole picture.
Yeah. And my kids are doing something and I'm looking at the mirror going, wow, you're like an aspect of me. Yeah. You know, like the multifaceted face or whatever. Yeah. You're an aspect of me. Wow, what's here for me? Yeah. You know, like every day. Yes. And so I find that really inspiring.
You know, and when you really hit an edge, wow, like, gosh, so I've got something to learn about that, you know?
Yeah. And where have I felt that before? And okay, you know, and my eldest daughter, actually, I had a great moment with her on Friday. She was it was yesterday, super stormy and emotional, and I could easily put it down to puberty, right? I could easily go, ugh, puberty.
Yeah.
Highly emotional girl. Or I could look at, you know, everything I said, every limit I put on there, she like cracked the sads big time and sulked and got all stormy and, you know, and she did it after basketball when I said no to a play date. And I was even like, mate, if you're going to crack it like this every time I say no to a play date, there's no more play dates. I heard myself and I'm like, whoa, let's get home and sort this out, you know. So we, you know, I got home with the girls. My husband was out with my son at basketball, of course. And so I got home and she was still storming and stomping around. And I think I said no. Oh, we were pumpkin carving. I planned pumpkin carving for Halloween today.
Yeah.
Not yesterday, but she wanted to pumpkin carve yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm saying to her, I gave her all the reasons why I couldn't do it right here and now. Not just, no, we're not doing it. I gave her all the reasons.
Yeah.
All the whys.
Yeah.
That still wasn't enough for her emotions. So then I went, you know what, Julie? It's not the why. It's the broken cookie, right?
Yeah.
So I just completely, and because we're in aligned parenting at the moment, I'm so conscious of all of the parenting stuff that gets brought up for me too in that dynamic. And so I switched completely to just hold the space, just acknowledge it. And so I just acknowledged her feelings.
How she was feeling.
That's all I did. Opened my body up. I think I had my baby on I'd kind of put a mattress on the floor. So I was mucking around doing like crafty stuff with my 4-year-old, had the baby on the floor next to me, and there was her sitting. And I just opened up my body and just tried to really center my energy to kind of mirror her vibration, if you want to call it that. That's the mirroring component. And then just acknowledged how she was feeling. That's all I did. Put a label to it. Said, I get that. That's really hard. And I get why you're feeling that. And I just let it. And then I just said, mate, it's okay to let all those tears out. It's okay just to feel that feeling and move into that feeling rather than trying to stop it and move away from it. Just let it wash over you. Just move into it. And so she'd kind of, you know, and the tears would start and then she'd control it and bring it back down again. And every time she controlled it and brought it back down, I'd find the words that took her back to that edge again. And so I probably just did that and then was quiet in between, brought her back to the edge, quiet in between, brought her back to the edge, quiet in between. And until she got to the point where she was like, and then I just opened my body and said, come here, mate. And she just curled up in my body and we had a cuddle for, you know, I don't know, 2 minutes probably. And then bang, back into alignment, back into cooperative, beautiful, flowing jade. And I thought, it's never the thing. Come on, Julie. But I was so hit with gratitude for what we do, because that moment, you know, when they come back online and you're in a house with a really connected, centered child, I honestly feel like I'm in heaven.
It's beautiful.
And you know that feeling.
Yeah, I do.
It's that feeling of just, you feel like you are walking among angels.
Yeah.
It's such just, I don't even know, it literally feels like grace. If I had to put a name to grace, that would, or, you know, a feeling, that would be that feeling. And here it is in my home with my daughter. Like,
it's beautiful.
I just take a moment to breathe that in and really watch her and just breathe into her. And I go, this gig that we're doing is amazing.
It's pretty incredible, isn't it? And it just, and I think too, when you put it like that, it's just such a reminder that it's not to be, there's no reason to be afraid of the overwhelmingness of motherhood either, because the more and more we find the capacity to lean into the parts we find hard, like, which is often the emotions or the demandingness or all those things, if we find our own pathway into softness in those things, then we remove the rub. And of course we'll get a new one, because that's how we grow in our motherhood, but there's such wisdom in just staying a little bit longer, you know, in the discomfort, and finding those ways to reframe like you did, and like we talk about in aligned parenting.
And I love that we have the capacity again, right? Here's our theme word, and the toolkit to be able to do that, because I just think they are the moments again that light my soul on fire. And I think for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're the moments that bring me to just tears of like,
just humble to your knees, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how did I miss that? How have I spent all week running from that?
Yeah.
And here it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, God is in your home. We are the divine in manifestation. Like, just, love it. So good. Back to baby stuff, I guess. I leave her a lot more. So that's been really interesting with a lot of the RIE principles. I've really been sitting with a lot of those.
So that's like independent play on the floor and things like that, or?
Yeah, and where normally, I think previously even with Lola, I would have been really guilty, like she's slept in her cot on her own, and then I've picked her up and fed her, and normally I'd be like, oh, I should probably play with you or something now, or spend some time connecting with you. Often I'm like, well, off me, Ty, I've got shit to do.
Yeah.
You're going on the mat. And there's part of me that's still like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, she rolls with it.
Yeah.
And I still go, whoa. How's that?
It's pretty amazing.
You know, and then I notice, you know, Lola then moves into a space and plays with her. And I'm off dinner, cooking, working, you know, doing my volunteer gigs, whatever it is. And I kind of think it's the fluidity of that and recognising what is shooting and what is authentic.
Yeah.
You know, and really in the shooting sitting into my beliefs and realising that they're not truth, even though I kind of want them to be sometimes. You know, I want to still be right.
Yeah.
And then your kids do these things that you go, damn it, I'm not always right.
Yes, damn it. Damn it.
You know, I'm definitely more comfortable with tears, like in terms of my husband being able to hold that space. So, you know, I'd certainly use the dummy early on. She's now spat the dummy, so to speak. She won't have a bar of it, which I'm like, damn it. It seemed like my solution.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually ironic. That now she won't even take the dummy. So, and conversely the bottle as well, which I was so hoping she was going to take the bottle. And I think they're the same sucking mechanism.
Okay.
So whether it's like I could make it that, but it's probably not. It's still, I'm sure I keep going, why don't I want her to take the bottle? Why don't I? Because I really do. Why don't I? Like, there's part of me that obviously still doesn't.
Yeah.
Or else it wouldn't be in, or there's still a learning mechanism that I've got out of this dynamic. So I'm still sitting with what that is. But at the same time, where previously I would have allowed that to hold me, I'm going to say hold me back or keep me caged in inverted commas or tied to my family and my baby. Now I know enough to know that we're all getting our needs met and it's okay for me to step away and for her and her dad to work their own dynamic out. Because the fact that she cries when I'm not there or I've left, or she won't take the bottle from him or whatever, both of them are still getting everything they need in that moment. So, and I still sit with, I can still be a control pattern. So the fact that she cries when I hand her to him, not all the time now, and then she calms when I pick her up, I'm the dummy.
Yeah.
Which we don't want to be, but I am. So even though I say I hold space for tears, I do. But sometimes just by my very presence, I don't.
You're not, because you
I'm the stopper.
Yeah, you're the stopper. Yeah.
Whereas if I can flip it enough to look at that my husband provides the opportunity for outlet that I don't, then it's an enormous gift to her.
Do you have any concerns about your husband truly listening? Or do you don't really?
I honestly don't care.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he has to listen. I actually think he does an enormously fantastic job of it. But I also don't think he has he does a lot of distraction. He does still try a lot of distraction. So even I walked in before, I fed her before, and she's obviously been crying for, I don't know, an hour or something since she woke up, and he's got her in the bedroom. He's trying to bounce her on her knee. I was sitting there thinking, what the fuck are you doing? So he's tried everything. He's tried, I know. You know what? It's sometime is worn out. Now he's like, let's try and
come on.
But even in that, I kind of think, whatever that is, she's hitting his exact, because his parents are the gold standard of distraction.
Yeah, right.
And so here he is, plugged right back into that, whether he's consciously aware of it or not.
Yeah.
And that's still perfect. So it's still perfect. I don't need to control it in order for it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's
so much freedom in that.
Man, I can't tell you how much freedom there is in it, because I don't have any guilt about it at all, because I can see the healing and the universal, you know, perspective on love that is. It's not I'm abandoning her, it's she and her dad are finding their own version of love.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm allowing that by stepping back, and I'm lighting myself up with whatever I'm choosing to do in those moments, which I bring back in my overflowing cup to her. So no one's missing out in that situation. So, you know, that's what I've realised with my fourth is definitely more community involvement, because I judge everyone less and they automatically enter more. I put her down more, and I recognise, you know, who steps up when I step away. And I see the healing that other people provide that I can't.
Yeah.
By virtue of just being there. So
They sound like some pretty amazing tools to rock it as a mother of four to me.
yeah.
Because there, I mean, I think it's that thing, when there is no other option, you find new perspectives, you find new opportunities, you find new ways of being that that ensure everybody gets their needs met.
Yeah.
Which you're totally doing.
Yeah. And even how her siblings step up. Oh gosh, I see so much just growth in having siblings, like multiple siblings.
Yeah, right.
So much growth, because it's this forced thing of less about self and more about others.
Yeah.
And the stretching and the discomfort that comes with that. You know, the sharing of rooms, nothing is ever just mine. Nothing is ever just about me. You know, and sometimes I feel like that's forced upon them and they have to find their way through it, which is fine too.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm surprised by how they automatically shift. So, you know, my older two have definitely taken a much more nurturing caretaking role than what they did with Lola, who's my third child, because I was all consumed with that, right?
They couldn't, because you were doing that. They didn't need to.
I was literally filling that whole space.
Yeah.
And now I'm not filling that space. It's incredible to me how all three of them have stepped unconsciously into that space. Like even my son, my 11-year-old son, who I honestly wouldn't have pegged for, you know, being he was literally not interested in Lola at all.
Yeah.
So soft and gooey around her. It's like ridiculous. And I still go,
gorgeous.
Wow, how's that for a gift? Because what are they learning in that caretaking role?
Yeah.
That I could look at, you know, even we're around and, you know, Jada, whoever come like, can I take the baby? And I'm like, yeah, you can take the baby. And here they are, you know, with their friends, gooing and garring and playing around with what, you know, caretaking is and mothering is. And, you know, like it's just, it's really profound to me when we step back, who steps up. And we don't want to read the world that way, but I really see that truth now. And there was no space for anyone to do that with my third. None. I literally took that whole space up.
Yeah. So interesting, isn't it? Because it just gives you that new perspective all the time when you start to ask those questions. Who's stepping up right now when I step away?
Yeah. So, you know, it's annoying me that she's dumped the dummy in the bottle, because it would certainly be easier if she didn't do that. I'm sitting with that question. I don't know. What else do you want to know, Bridge?
I just really admire the grace with which you've integrated a fourth child into your family, which could, you know, think about where we find ourselves in motherhood with the journeys that our children take us on, and you know, like I think with every child there is a new version of self that is born, and I guess I wonder if you're getting to know that new version of you that has been born with the birth of Gwen, and who is that? You know, what's your relationship with yourself and yourself as a mother and woman? Have you noticed a new incarnation of self through her?
I do think I've stepped more wholeheartedly into the role of mother. And I don't quite know how to articulate that, because I've always, you know, loved being a mum, but just this more well-rounded sense of there's not the same ego or identity attached to it. It's just an enjoyment of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's that. I think it's called me into witnessing more versions of motherhood around me. And I kind of also see my role as paving the way a little bit. You know, you're only able to, you know, what we were talking about in last week's podcast, that you're inspired by the people that you have around you, particularly women, and you only know what's possible by the women you have around you. And I really enjoy, I suppose, that role of I'm still showing up in this world as me, even with 4 kids. And that's, you know, that's kind of paradoxical to what culture would say is possible.
It's possible. Yeah. Yeah.
And I enjoy challenging that status quo, and I enjoy, part of me kind of enjoys, you know, when people go, oh, is this your second or first? I'm like, no, it's my 4th. And I really kind of enjoy that reaction. You know, I think it's having less identity and ego around my motherhood. Yeah. And more just a centered sense of self that I'm willing to put out in this world. And definitely it stretches me and stretches me and stretches me in a relationship. And as you know, relationship is 1, my biggest void, and 2, my biggest genius.
Yeah.
So, as if it wasn't going to, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, exactly.
I was kind of in a really cruisy state with relationship, and that's definitely completely rocked it to a new level. But I totally see the wisdom in that. The journey, because I'm not one to sit on my laurels, as neither are you, Bridge, and so I'm constantly looking at now, you know, expanded reading, expanded audiobook listening, expanded toolkits, expanding, like, it's adding to that genius, because
that empowerment.
Exactly, because that void and that pain is so big, and as if that doesn't serve me. So even the pain that has brought with it, I'm not lost in that pain, because I can completely see how that transforms me as I show up in this world, and the service that I'm here to give back in this world. It's all tied into it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would say my biggest pain point is relationship with my husband, and what that's really calling me to step up into.
It's big stuff.
Yeah, so more than my motherhood, which is surprising, right?
Yeah.
Because you'd think going from 3 to 4, particularly with my version of I didn't want to have a 4th, that it would be that. And it's been a shock to me that it's actually been the thing I thought I was comfortable with. Which is kind of hilarious. When you think you're comfortable, that's when you can shake you up, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's where you, like, hey, over here, I need to work a bit harder.
That's right. And so I'm definitely working harder on Eros. I'm completely transforming the previous held conceptions that even I have had around women, sexuality, sensuality, desire. I'm completely transforming even what I thought that was, particularly in early parenting. And that's huge growth, you know, to completely break apart and dismantle previously held beliefs and reform them through stretching and practice. Like,
Uncomfortable.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Painful. You know, I want to be able to say, you know, oh, well, it's just because I'm up at night and my breasts are used for breastfeeding and I feel yuck in my body. And, you know, that's all these reasons why I'm not feeling sexual or desirous or juicy in my body. It's not true. It's because of all the other underlying beliefs that underpin each of those. It's because it's easier to make it that than it is to make it me. And so I'm completely having to shatter what that is and looks like, and have incredibly deep conversations with myself, and then find a way to have those conversations with my husband, and come to a place where, you know, there's a lot of left and there's a lot of right. And then occasionally I hit that bit in the middle where I go, fuck, this is Eros, right? I'm back here. And yet my previously held beliefs would say I couldn't be. And so it might be that, you know, 6 of the 7 days of the week I'm going, oh, it's all of these reasons. And then I really get seriously real about it and change some shit up. And bang, I'm back with incredible desire and, you know, juiced upness.
Got it all.
It's not any of the beliefs.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so I'm still on that journey of going, wow.
Dismantling.
Yeah. Working out the toolkits, working out my own inner world that leads to those results, because I'm still going left and right and occasionally hitting the middle. And where I want to live is in the middle, which, as you and I know, is never, like, it's never possible to live 100% there. Yeah. But I'm going a lot more left and right than I am in the middle. And what I'm enjoying about that is the challenge of the beliefs that, you know, our sexuality is not dead in the water when we're mothers to new babies. that's not truth. Where does that come from me? And why do I think that? And why is my body feeling like that? And why am I in my head like this? And really pulling apart, like, as you know, Esther Perel, who I'm like mad riding the coattails of at the moment, says, you know, tell me how you were loved as a child and I'll tell you how you make love. And I'm so sitting with that, like just really dismantling even previously held conceptions I had around what I picked up about love and receiving, therefore. I mean, how much have we talked about receiving and the feminine and allowing? And this is a whole nother layer of that for me, because I can so see that my childhood was built on the foundation of, you know, I have to work hard to receive. And so when it comes to Eros, which is all about receiving, I can't let myself do that until I've, in inverted commas, paid back enough of a tab in my mind that I'm now deserving of it. Like that's so
that's huge, like wiring
in my body, you know. And so it wouldn't matter what my husband did if in my head I haven't equilibrated that give and take. I can't even enter that. Like I'm completely dismantling my childhood stories. And I thought I'd already done that, and it turns out I haven't.
It's really big.
So for me, this time around, Bridge, it's the pleasure in motherhood and it's the challenge in relationship is where I find myself.
I'm excited also for the wisdom that's going to create in what we do in Nourishing the Mother, because
I really want to expand that out.
That there is, you know, and that's certainly an edge that I'm getting much more confident in dancing as well in my relationship too, is like feeling into the resistance. Why is it there? What's my story? What's my pattern?
What's my dynamic? Yeah, the why, exactly.
You know, why can't I receive? All of those things are so important for us to dismantle, because it's never them.
No, but this is the whole thing, right? We so filter our reality to the point where we believe our story is truth. And that's so freaking painful when that gets challenged.
It is. Oh,
so, there we go.
love this episode. Thank you for sharing.
I'm not sure if it's a bit convoluted, so if you do, lovely listener, need us to break it down, I'm happy to break it down more. But, you know, that's certainly the musings that are inside of me.
I definitely think that it's a question that so many women in our tribe are probably wondering too, is, you know, how are you rocking it, you know, with 4? And I think you absolutely are. And I also love the vulnerability with which you've shared.
Thanks.
Where you're not, like, and where you're
I was about to say, I don't want to put out there that I'm rocking it, because you might see me down the street one day and I'm not. And I'm completely fine with the not part. Too. Like, I don't want to sell the dream, like, because...
But isn't that also rocking it in the sense of being okay with both sides of it?
Yeah.
You know, being able to accept the spectrum is in essence rocking it in a sense.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. It's true. Removing the guilt and the labels and the burden that comes with it. Yeah, I definitely feel a lightness in my motherhood this time, which is like really delightful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So, we want to remind you again this time to please jump on at the website nourishingthemother.com.au and check out a lot of our online products, because we've got a whole range there if you're kind of wanting to perhaps consciously question some of your dynamics, or your relationships, or your patterns, which we've been talking about a lot here. There's some great sort of, you know, PDFs and different kind of downloadable toolkits that we've got there that you can apply to your own life. We've also got a couple of video programs in there and audio programs, so really great ones just to get a taste test if you haven't jumped into our courses yet of what we're all about, and really apply some things to your own life and transform your stories too.
And if there's any comments, questions, or even little things you'd like us to put up there as a product, like I've been toying with, maybe we should put up like a natural hospital birthing kind of toolkit or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Then we would love your feedback as well, same as podcast topics. If you have something that you really want to know more about, we really love the inspiration of being able to bounce off our tribe and go where you really are called to, because it's never just you.
No.
It's always all of us. We're all a reflection in some way of each other.
Exactly.
And what's happening for you is happening for us as well on some level. So, you know, please don't be shy to connect with us. We really do enjoy that part the most out of probably everything we do, don't you think?
I love it. I love it, love it.
So you can connect with us on nourishingthemother.com.au through we've got, you know, just contact forms you can fill out on our website, or Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. What else?
And to connect with you, Jules.
Is thepleasurenutritionist.com.
And me, it's suburbansandcastles.com.
And your next movie?
Is Heal. So it's all about the mind-body connection, and specifically looking at kind of health and disease. And it's a really profound look. I guess it's a lot of what we talk about and a lot of our tools, but applying that to health. So it's a fascinating documentary showing in Melbourne, Geelong and Byron Bay. So I'd love to see you there if you're in those areas.
And thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate the fact that we have a tribe that, you know, comes in and hears us and speaks to us every week and shares that learnings. I love even hearing women that listen to the podcast and they catch up a coffee and they dissect it. And I'm like, it's so exciting because this is tribe building, and the more we can have these conscious conversations, the more we're creating incredible ripples in the world. So remember, you've got to rock the mother. No, wrong way round. Nourish the mother to rock. I am going to get this. Nourish the mother to rock the family. That's our tagline we're working with, which we kind of unconsciously threw out in one of our groups, and we realise it's totally the crux of nourishing the mother. And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.